to sell that book. I'm arguing with my publisher, who's one of the who's who publisher in the world, to get my book into the digital format. Wouldn't you be shocked? So it has to be the hardcover first, then the paperback, then it will be the e-book, and then it will be the audiobook. My argument is that some people read, some people hear. So why don't we get the audiobook out very fast? So there are issues. Put it on the table. So I think we need to solve issues rather than only become complacent about this. And knowing trends take us nowhere, because what would you do by knowing a trend? Like I said, it's a voyeuristic, vicarious pleasure, which makes no difference to you. It's nice to sit here and say, everybody will say, trend is this, trend is that, trend is that, and all. Okay, great. Then, where is the call to action? What would you do with the trend? The trend has to translate into something. Yeah, that's one challenge I want to live. I have a hypothesis here. I want to live this hypothesis with you, all of you, and with no offense meant to anybody. 99% of us who talk about learning have ourselves invested very little in understanding the theories of learning. And if we don't know the theories of learning, how could you create the structure for learning? I'm not even talking about content. Content can come from everybody else. But theories of learning are about how do people learn, and how should learning be structured. So we all get moved into jobs, and we move into those jobs, and having moved into those jobs, we end up really discharging them to the best of our abilities and do very little to prepare ourselves to be worthy in those jobs. Skinner, Daniel Goleman, David Cole, Jean Piaget, John W. Gardner, Howard Gardner. How many? Anyone? Any three? Any five I can put on the table? This is not to brag, I know all of them. Thanks to Satish Pradhan, my mentor, who would give a big hit in my head if I start speaking without having read any one of this. And I was blessed to have a mentor. He said, open your mouth on competency without having read L.L. Spencer and Boyasis, get out of the room. And if you don't know where competency started, White and McClelland, get out of the room. Don't even attempt to come and talk to me anything. For many of us, training structuring becomes picking a piece of paper and writing this time to this time, this session, this time to this time, this session, this person. And we think that is training design or learning design. So I believe, including professors, we don't have to sit down and drop our jaw for Harvard professors and Yale professors. And when you go very close to them and start working very closely with them, you will know how much of investment they themselves are making in their own learning. There are this dog-eared, 20 years old notes they have made when they first started teaching. 25 years later, 95% of the professors are teaching out of the same note, and they haven't moved a little bit forward in their lives to create learning for themselves. So any wonder that people find the programs we offer interesting? Faultily structured. When the world wants video, we give text. How many of us today in this domain know, right, how many minutes of video is what megabytes, gigabytes? How many of us can pick a camera, shoot, sit behind an editing console, and advise an editor to say, edit this video like this for the best impact for learning? You don't have to be the editor. I'm not asking you to learn editing skill. Structuring skill, learning structure. Where do you put the super? Where do you put the text? Where do you put a graphic? Where do you put an animation? And where do you put a voice? Should voice have a music on top of it? How many tracks are there in a video? One audio track, two audio track. How do you lay music? What music is ambient music and what music is emotional music? That's where you have to go. If you're going to work in this, it's nice to catch it to say 5 A's, 4 A's, 7 A's and all. It takes you nowhere. The gentleman there behind right now, right, is this the best way to record it? You got to ask him, does this voice go through an amplifier into his camera there? And when you do that video shooting, would you be able to go behind the camera and look at the exposure levels to see, right, what is the exposure there? Is that the best exposure? But that's the product you're going to give. Praveer will come and give the talk, or Praveer will be the person, Anand can be, we can work, content will come from them. But if you're the learning structure, how to keep a frame, you don't have to do it, he will do it. But you have to stand there and look at it and say, how do you keep that frame right now? I don't even know whether the frame has been framed well until I see here. And when I see here, I need to know that what happens. Am I in the center of it? Am I in the left of it? Am I in the right of it? Where am I? How is he framed me? Is the exposure light? Is the exposure strong? For my skin tone, what you do. For another person's skin tone, what you do. What color of shirt do you wear? If you're going to tell the person, right? If I'm going to do this with a blue backdrop, if I know it, please don't come with a blue shirt. The product will look very bad. Learning structuring, my dear friends. Learning structuring. When you edit, how do you get sound balance? So I'm really dealing with the, our image about this anywhere, anytime, anything is to really convert a PowerPoint presentation and put it onto an online, and instead of a person pushing the slides there, you push it on the computer. One of the thumb rules which I learned 20 years back about online learning is to say, if on every screen, if the participant is not required to do something, no learning happens on that screen. It's called active screens. Passive screens don't promote learning. Active screens promote learning. So how do you design active screens when you're doing this? Can't be outsourced to some coder and say that I pick content from somebody, I find one third-party person, push it to this fellow, and you say you make it, and then we call ourselves learning and development professionals. And then we will take it to our employees, or whoever is the person for whom the learning is meant to be consumed by them. So my request to all of you is to say, it's interesting to learn design thinking tomorrow, but I'll leave it there. Yeah? So I'll leave it with a challenge as usual. No offense meant, because I believe that these are places where you come and challenge people. You don't come here and simply create comfort. And I like discomfort in myself and in other people. So if there are a few people who walk out of this room saying, I'm uncomfortable and I want to smash Ram Kumar for what he said, smash it through your products. Smash it through your contribution to learning and development. Smash it by being the bloody best learning and development person on the online platform in the world. And there is no cop-out excuse available for us to say we can't be the best in the world. Every resources which is required for any one of us in India sitting where we are to give a challenge to anybody anywhere in the world is possible today. So anything less than the best in the world is cop-out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the thought-provoking address. I would now want to invite Mr. Prabeer Jha to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. Do you need to breathe a little easy after Ram's session? Actually, I can assure you it's pure serendipity, but Kamal, honestly, getting Ram and me both together, one after the other, both of us think contrarian, both of us have very high passion. So with Ram's dose, now I just have to tone down my passion. So I'll try and be a little less provocative, but I think the point's been said, and some of the thoughts that I was scribbling when I was coming along resonates very closely with what Ram said. Although Anand, you also stole one of the lines I was wanting to talk, and maybe I'll start with that. I think the concept is a very good concept that all of you have assembled here for. There is no denying the fact that the world has changed, attention spans have shrunk, learning has indeed got democratized. Many years back, I used to head HR for Dr. Reddy's, and in our leadership academy, I remember calling some very distinguished speakers. And I thought I was being revolutionary, saying I'm not going to say, all right, all the vice presidents and above will attend the program, and then you follow a certain sequence. I said, the first 150 people or 250 people, whatever the number was, irrespective, have an opportunity to kind of join. And what did I see? The senior people, barely anyone actually volunteered to come to an open invitation. The youngsters were the ones who were wanting to learn. And therefore, the point I want to make is, in a conference like this, in a summit like this, while we acknowledge and recognize the power of all the 5 A's, I want us to think learning will not happen if the culture of learning does not change in a company. And I think as learning professionals, we somewhere start with the wrong end of the animal, because we have scoped it that way. We believe our agenda is to kind of look at some design, push the content, and our job is done. And I feel, therefore, learning starts with influencing. And many of us in the conference today must, in the 2 days that we are together, must ask ourselves, if we want to be better learning specialists, learning designers, learning solutionists, one is to understand the context, the stakeholder need, but can we influence? Because I come from a world which believes that the difference between looking at a stakeholder as a client and as a customer is very deep. A customer is always right. A client may not always be right. And when we offer learning solutions in whichever medium, whichever the 5 A's, anywhere, anytime, any content, all which sounds very nice, sounds very democratic, sounds very populist, puts the onus of learning on the individual, which conceptually I have no debate with. But if the ecosystem in which that has to happen, whether organizational or individual, I think it's our job to influence. Ram talked about something I was also wanting to share, so let me get it off my chest. Many years back again, when management or Harvard management or all these things were kind of just getting into the market, and this is some years back, even I said, yeah, let's get them in, let's offer, and we must make sure we make this investment. My experience was exactly what Ram shared. The number of people who finish courses, anytime, anywhere, all of this, what was the outcome? The company spent the money, no one learned, and we were where we are. So I also tend to believe that while the reality of times I won't deny, my children read or see or hear a lot on their little mobiles. I try and do a lot of 140 characters on my tweets every day. I understand, because people don't have the time. But is that necessarily learning? I am not sure. And because there is no way we can measure the effectiveness of the 5A learning, to me it is like getting into a nice 5-star buffet spread and say, because we've kind of laid it thick, people are necessarily satiated. And from my own